Do you want to improve at a quicker pace? Check out the GitGud Course. Instead of just understanding concepts, you'll learn how to implement them directly into your driving. What makes it effective is the approach and practical drills. Together, we're gonna focus on breaking down those complex concepts into small digestible bits that are simple to understand. Everything from the course was tested and refined during the years in coaching sessions, so what I ended up with was the ones that I saw were the most effective. Let's elevate your racing skills together. Now for the track guide. Before starting, if you enjoyed this content, giving it a like and a subscribe is a free way to support the channel, as I can continue to create videos like this. Now going into the track guide itself, turn 1, my reference for braking will be this white line on the track right now. This is before the 100 meter board, and I usually use this because sometimes I'm gonna brake slightly past the line, sometimes at the line. So in this case I'm braking right before the line at this point. So this is something like a margin of error that I can take into this corner. Judging just by this white line, I found it way easier to see than the 100 meter board, and of course you're braking before the 100 nonetheless. So braking in a straight line initially whenever you're peaking to your highest brake pressure, and it's important to mention I'm using the fixed setup and I changed the brake bias. I gave it around 5-6 clicks to the rears, so the braking force is going a bit more toward the rear tires. This makes me able to press the brake a bit harder without locking up the tires. So I'm picking around 77% while braking on a straight line. This is important because you will lock up the tires easily if you don't maximize the efficiency under braking. So what I'm doing here is just making sure whenever I'm peaking the pressure, I'm keeping 0 degrees on the steering wheel. Then as I bleed the brakes, I start to turn more and more because there's a lot of grip right here in the camber. So I'm trying to get into this part of the track while still being on the brakes. And what I'm doing right now, so what's important is that you want to be on the brakes really a lot of time, because look what's happening here. This trail brake, it's happening for a long time. So if you find yourself going a bit too early on throttle while going uphill, this means that you're just carrying a bit too less speed. Your speed is a bit too low, so that's why you're able to go earlier on throttle. You want to do the opposite, you want to shoot the car deep into the corner. And now I'm picking up the throttle, and what I'm doing while picking up the throttle, you can use a bit the curb on the right side. I don't use it this much on this attempt, but I found that if you use it, generally it's quite quick. Now going into the next corner, for the next corner, make sure you use all the track by using this part of the curb to brake on it. In terms of the braking point, I'm braking at the moment that I straighten up the car. So look what's happening here. I'm arriving from this angle, and the moment that I position the car and now I have the steering wheel almost straight, that's when I'm applying the brakes. And I'm actually braking whenever I'm steering into the corner as well, but my reference for braking is arriving at the curb and opening up the corner as much as possible. The moment that I'm placing the car at the right spot, that's where I'm braking. And I'm turning into the corner. You don't want to brake very hard, but, and this is a bit of a mistake, a bit too quickly on the steering wheel, you just want to cut more on this yellow sausage curb. In this case I miss it, that's why I forced it a bit too much. But what you want to do is you want to modulate your brake force in such a way that you will be able to hit this yellow anti-curb. That's it. So don't think too much about the brake pressure, just look at where the car is going, and if the car is not arriving here, just hold the brakes more or pick a bit harder. What's important though, and the way that I recover after this small mistake, is that I give it a blimp of 100% throttle in between the corners, because if you will be able to stay at 100% throttle for like few seconds, the moment that you will brake, that energy that you stored in the suspension, in the rear tires, will be pushed to the front end of the car and you will have more grip. So the way that you can make the car rotate a bit more into this section is with your throttle. You want to generate some energy into the rear springs so that whenever you're dropping the throttle and braking, you can shift a bit more of the weight. That's the idea. And this works beautifully in this chicane and the next I'm just making sure I'm aggressive on the throttle in between the corners, and then when I'm braking, the car will rotate nicely. Notice that I cut a lot of the curb here, and while going on throttle, make sure you go all the way to the sand here. It's a lot of lap time in using all the track. Now going into the next chicane, around the 50-meter board, I'm applying the brakes. I'm braking slightly past the 50, and I'm holding the brakes up until I hit the yellow anti-curbs. Again, same thing as in the first chicane. So I'm just looking at this yellow curve and I'm staying on the brakes up until I see that, okay, the car is turning nicely. Then I'm pushing the throttle, and look what happens here on the throttle. This is interesting. I try to give as hard as I can on the throttle. Quite not ideal here. You will see I lose a bit of time, but ideally, I wanted, my purpose here, my objective was to hit that 100% throttle. It wasn't doable because I just apexed a bit earlier in the previous corner, but the same idea. You want to shift more weight to the front tires, you're gonna do it with your throttle, being aggressive on throttle, and you can see here that I lost a bit of time compared to my previous lap. So in my previous lap, I was able to hit 100% here, so the weight transfer was a bit bigger. And that's how you can gain time. Now for the next corner, I'm braking here. You see this car on the left side. I'm braking before it, like this car around here. Slightly before it, I'm applying the brakes, downshifting to third, and cut here this curb a lot. This is important. Cut as much as you can. The moment that you're on the curb, push the throttle. The car will arrive more towards the right side, and immediately you will start turning from this angle. I'm in fourth gear, giving just a small tap on the brakes and now back on throttle while hitting the curb. Don't go completely over the curb, it will be too much. And now here again, don't go all the way to the gravel trap, you won't have enough time to reposition. Just use the green, white and red curb. Pushing the car again, don't go all the way to the left side here, you will spend a lot of time turning, and the car, and this is a heavy car, has some inertia to it. So if you will go left, right really quickly, the weight doesn't have enough time to properly lean in one side and then immediately go back to the other. So because of the weight transfer, and because this car is a bit lazy, because it's a heavy car, it's not an open wheel car, you can't go left right real quick. It won't work. So you will lose momentum, you'll lose time, and if you see that you're not able to do it, then you won't force it. So I'm not trying to arrive here all the way on the left because I don't want to get hit by this inertia. Now into this corner, just barely applying the brakes, 9% on the brake, 10%, because I'm planning to go on throttle whenever I'm in the middle of the curve. Like right now, this is the long curve. Now I'm pushing the throttle to 100%, using here all the curb. Now turning a bit earlier, because if you will use all the track almost to the sand, then whenever you will go on the curb, so whenever you will mount it, then this curb has a bit of height, and because of that the car is a bit lazier to turn, because the tire doesn't go on a flat surface, it goes on a bump, something like on a bump, and if you will turn a bit later it will be harder. So I'm turning earlier than I normally would, but this makes the timing nice because the car is lazy to turn, so in a way I compensate for this laziness. I'm pushing the brakes while going into this corner, but just barely touching the brake, 9%, 10%, and now pushing the throttle while mounting this curb. This is super important. You want to touch this curb. It's super important for those high-speed corners to be as precise as you can with your apex and go deep. This is exactly what I'm doing. A small correction here, not ideal, but in the end using all the track. And now arriving to the next corner, braking point will be this exit road on the left side. Here, slightly past it, I'm applying the brakes. Brake in a straight line initially, super important. If you're gonna brake late, keep 0 degrees of turn angle, then you will start turning more and more, cutting this yellow anti-curve while pushing the throttle on top of it, and then you will arrive more towards the left side here. This is perfectly fine. If you get all the way to the green, then it's gonna be very bad, but if you're in the center left, that's okay, because now you will try to reposition to the center, and while turning into this corner, very close to these yellow anti-curves, while giving like 5% braking and pushing the throttle again. Make sure you don't get the off track. If you're just a bit more towards the right side, you will get an off track. And now we're heading towards the last two corners of the track. Braking point for me here is the 50-meter board, I believe. Let's see, yeah, the 50-meter board around here. Around the 50 I'm applying the brakes, and you want to brake and turn at the same time into this corner. Double apex corner, this is the first apex. Long trail braking, so still on the brakes, You want the car to track out a bit wider, so more like a V-shaped line, and then pushing the throttle and getting that second apex around here, keeping the throttle pinned. Make sure you don't go all the way towards the left, because you will gain a bit of time here, but you will lose all that time and more into the next corner, because those next two won't be flat. You won't be able to keep the throttle pinned if you're all the way towards the left side, so stay in the center left. Push the car on the right side before turning into this corner, so it will be more towards the center, and right now these two will be flat. Make sure you cut a lot of them. It can be easy here to take the off track and take the gravel if you don't have the proper position, so make sure that in that long corner you don't drive all the way towards the left. And now into the last corner, braking point will be past the 50, it will be at this black box here on the right side in my windshield. Like right now I'm applying the brake, so notice it's not close to 50, it's close to this part around here. Brake in a straight line, brake quite hard, close to 70%, and then start turning more and more. And long trail braking zone, I'm going into second gear while trail braking like this. Push the throttle and mount this curb. There's a lot of time that you can gain by touching this curb. And now just make sure you don't go too deep here, because there's a nasty off track that you can take. But in short, that's a track guide around Mugello with the Porsche Cup. Very hot track, 40 degrees Celsius, so it will be hard on the tires, but I hope you will have a nice week racing here. And of course, if you're watching this in a later season, maybe the temperatures will be a bit colder and you'll be able to go a bit quicker and the balance will be better. So it's gonna depend. It's gonna depend also on the setup, but I hope you have a good time around here. I hope you found this useful, and if you want to accelerate the progress, if you want to improve at a quicker pace, then you can check out my sim racing course. It's in the video description. It has around 7 hours worth of content and lessons, and I think it will help you improve even more. But thanks for watching, thanks for sticking around, and looking forward to see you in the next video. Bye bye.